What's going on, everyone? So reports have came out that the Los Angeles Lakers are expected to be part of an expanded Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns trade that will expand into 7 teams. It would be a record-breaking, league record-breaking negotiation if this goes through. But the Rockets and Suns are working on an expanding the Kevin Durant trade into a deal that will involve 7 teams. The other teams involved in the league record negotiations are the Atlanta Hawks, the Brooklyn Nets, the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, including, the Rockets and the Suns would be the 6th and 7th team. And this was via Fred Katz originally, who reported this, but we've had like Brett Siegel and a bunch of other people come along and say like, hey, yeah, this is in the works to be happening. However, don't get your hopes up that the Lakers are going to land any key pieces, right? Now, in a perfect world, the Lakers land, like a Nick Richards and like a Cam Whitmore, maybe the Dorian Finney-Smith becomes a sign and trade and you end up landing a couple pieces, right? Realistically speaking, their most likely involvement in this is the acquisition of the 36th pick in the draft, which I know would be incredibly underwhelming if that happens, if this crazy, massive, record-breaking trade happens, and the only thing the Lakers walk away with is the 36th pick. But Lakers would just kind of be the tacket. It's basically the other teams that, because it went down a chain, right? There were like several teams that, swapped all these second-round picks and whatnot, and then the Lakers ended up pulling off the trade for the 36th pick. So it would just kind of be like their link to the chain would just be finalizing that into the deal. So Lakers would just kind of be in it for really just namesake, because they ended up doing the trade. I believe it was like the Chicago Bulls that ended up having, they went with the Bulls trade and then like worked down, and then eventually, because the Nets originally were the team that had the 36th pick. So it'd kind of just be this like chain event where the Lakers end up landing the 36th pick. Again, that doesn't mean that it won't be anything else, right? I mean, again, they're in negotiations. This isn't a finalized trade. This deal isn't over yet. There's a lot that can go into it, right? All of a sudden, when you're talking 7 teams, right, it's hard enough to do a singular trade, right? And what's the saying? 3 teams are where trades go to die, right? Like there's a lot of components, a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces, and you're gonna have teams that want this guy and that guy and do this and do that, right? And all of a sudden, again, this gets crazy expanded. All of a sudden, teams want or need this guy or that guy, or teams like, I don't really want, like a team like the Warriors, yeah, they want Nick Richards, but a team like Atlanta, they probably don't. So, if Atlanta's like, well, we don't want, like, Nick Richards, it would have to go to you to make this work. It's like, well, we don't want Nick Richards. Like, Nick Richards doesn't make sense for us. Okay, well, the Lakers come in and be like, well, we want Nick Richards. Okay, well, what would be great for us would be like Rui Hachimura. It's like, okay, well, yeah, but we can't match. Like, we got to get somebody else in return than just Nick Richards for Rui Hachimura, and then whatever the Houston Rockets go, okay, fine, we'll give you Cam Whitmore and finalize this so we can free up our full mid-level and sign Clint Capella with some of the full mid-level, and then go get another guy, or we'll take this guy and absorb him into the it just starts to get really convoluted and complicated. There's a lot that goes into it, but again, I want to be clear that don't be shocked if the only thing that happens for the Lakers is they land the 36th pick in this trade. And all these other teams make all these other moves and do all these other things, and the Lakers end up with Bupkis, essentially. I mean, it's not Bupkis, right? I'm really high on Thero. I think he's a guy that has a ton of potential, ton of upside. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see him in Summer League because he's still recovering from his injury. It's part of the reason he fell where he fell, was getting the injuries. But, hopefully, fingers crossed, the Los Angeles Lakers can actually pull out a couple other players, a couple other moves, even if it's just freeing up a little salary, right? Maybe Shake Milton's going out in a deal and a team's just taking him and absorbing him, in some type of trade because they need to match salaries or whatever, right? And they're like, okay, fine, we'll just take Shake Milton because he's on a non-guaranteed, so we can just waive him. And Lakers clear $3 million off the books. Or, maybe it's a deal where, again, they're sending out somebody, right? Like, who knows? There's a lot of things. Like I said, when you have these many teams, this many moving parts, many moving pieces, it's not out of the realm that the Lakers could kind of get involved and kind of renegotiate. It's just how much are the Lakers in this negotiation is the question. And also what players are going out, right? Because again, like, Houston might look at it as like, hey, we don't like we're fine, like everything on our end works. So it's like, okay, well then they're not going to trade Cam Whitmore and Jock Lindell. It's like, okay, well, the Suns, they need to get off the center. It's like Nick Richards. Okay, well, we'll take Nick Richards. So again, there could be parts. Ideally, what I'd love to get out of this, obviously there's a ton of players I'd love to get out, especially from like Atlanta side, but realistically speaking, keeping it within reason of what the Lakers could maybe pull out of this trade, in a perfect world, you end up with like Nick Richards, Cam Whitmore, and Jock Lindell, because Houston would still benefit greatly by signing and trading for Dorian Finney-Smith, right? Because then they can kind of work and navigate and kind of still potentially go sign another player or piece or whatnot. So that idea of a sign and trade with Houston still could be on the board, still could be a potential, right? Not saying that they will do it, not saying that it will happen, but it's something that could be on the board. So to me, I would hope, again, fingers crossed, where we end up pulling something off where, the Dorian Finney-Smith trade ends up, they end up doing a sign and trade with Dorian Finney-Smith. Lakers get Cam Whitmore and Jock Lindell, right? So that frees up some stuff for the Houston Rockets. Like I said, can now absorb Clint Capella into their cap space and whatnot. And then the Phoenix Suns, because they need to get off of Nick Richards, maybe you can do something where you're landing a Nick Richards, right? Maybe even a Dalton Connect or whatever's going on in the deal. If you could turn Dalton Connect into essentially, because again, Houston doesn't have to do anything, but if you could essentially navigate this to where you're sending out like I said, a Dalton Connect or something, and getting back Cam Whitmore, Jock Lindell, which would not only could potentially, because he's a non-guaranteed, free up a bunch of cap space, or you could use him to reroute into another trade. But if you could also get Nick Richards in that deal, that would be a home run. Or even if you just got back Nick Richards and Cam Whitmore, right? Say Lindell goes to Phoenix because Phoenix wants to get off of some salary or something, and then they waive him on a non-guaranteed, right? Whatever. If the Lakers, if you told me in the end of this, right, they get the 36th pick finalized, right, but also come away with Cam Whitmore and Nick Richards, chef kiss. That, to me, that would be an absolute home run in my opinion, right? Because, to go from basically nothing to that, you already got your starting center in DeAndre Ayton, and then, kind of navigate from there. Again, I want to be clear, realistically speaking, they're probably only going to get the 36th pick. Now, again, if I'm the Lakers, bare minimum, I want to walk out of this trade with a Nick Richards, right? Can you at least get Nick Richards? Like, if you're going to be, like, I don't want to give up a bunch of assets to go, like, I've talked about this very heavily. Like, I don't want to see the Lakers go and sell the farm or anything like that to go get a backup center. Like, I don't want to trade Dalton Connect and do all this other stuff to get a backup center. Right? I'd rather just go sign Al Horford and have Al Horford be your backup center, and then use your assets to go get perimeter help, right? Like, again, can you just go get Cam Whitmore? Right? Can you make a deal? Like, if they don't want to do a sign and trade, okay, fine. Can we at least get Cam Whitmore in the deal? Because again, he's a young, athletic, versatile wing that can do multiple things at the basketball court. I think he has real star potential. He's still incredibly, he's younger than the draft pick we just got in Thero, right? So to me, I think if the Lakers, in my opinion, got to come away with something other than just the finalization of the 36th pick. But again, it also depends on how much negotiations are they involved in this? Is this something where the Lakers are kind of left out of it, right? Like, they're basically just there for, like I mentioned earlier, namesake, because they got traded the Nets 36th pick? Or is this something that, maybe they can get a piece? Can they get somebody from, the problem is, like, the Nets, like, who do you want from the Nets now, right? Like, Nick Claxton doesn't make sense anymore because you got DeAndre Ayton. The Warriors, who would you want from the Warriors? Like, I'd love to get Jonathan Kuminga, but are they going to trade Jonathan Kuminga to the Lakers, and what's the cost for that? Cam Whitmore would make a ton of sense. Nick Richards make a ton of sense, but from anybody else's side of things, like, I don't know. Like, Atlanta, like Nkongwe, can you get Nkongwe? Like, that would be great. I don't know if Atlanta would do that right now, because you could have Nkongwe as like your backup. Outside of that, like, there's a ton of guys in Atlanta I'd love to get. I just don't know if they're going to trade any of those guys, because again, they're trying to make a push to go, and they actually had themselves quite the offseason. They're a team that might be tough to contend this season. So I just look at all the teams that are involved, and like, what's the likelihood, A, that they could pull something off, B, what players would you really want and need from any of these teams? And the only ones that I really come to the conclusion with that is realistic without having to sell the farm would be a Cam Whitmore and Nick Richards. Right? I think you could potentially get a Cam Whitmore and Nick Richards without having to trade all of your assets, right? I personally, and this is just me, I'm not against just swapping Cam Whitmore for Dalton Connect. I know some people might feel otherwise, but I've said this before, like outside of shooting, and Cam Whitmore is not a bad three-point shooter, but outside of shooting, what does Dalton Connect do better than Cam Whitmore? Right? Like Cam Whitmore is probably better in every area. He's definitely better defensively. And he's younger with more upside and potential. Like, if you could just do that, just do a Connect for Whitmore swap, I would be stoked on that. Like, I think that'd be fantastic. I mean, you could literally start Cam Whitmore at your 3 if you needed to, but we'll see how this develops. We'll see what ends up happening. But as always, this is a discussion, pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.